Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this virtual professional development opportunity. My name is Joe Schmidt, and I'm the Social Studies Specialist for the Maine Department of Education. Today, I am happy to be joined by Brandy Leroy. She is going to be talking about the ESRI Student Map Competition, a little bit about using ArcGIS, and some of the resources that she uses in her classroom at Bangor High School, and how you can implement some of those things in as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brandy.
Hi, everyone. So like Joe said, I'm Brandy Leroy, and I teach social studies at Bangor High School. I'm also going to be starting as an adjunct professor at the University of Maine, Machias, teaching some GIS there as well. Just kind of to get a feel, have any of you used ArcGIS before, or do you know if your school has an ArcGIS account? You can put it in the chat if you know that they have an account. Okay, Mary's used it and knows that there's an account. Okay, and I know that Shauna's over there in Orono, so she's using it all the time. So how about you, Jay? Have you ever used it? No. Okay. Okay. So ArcGIS, I'm going to kind of go over the basics since we since we have some beginners on here on getting a account. I have recycled this story map. This is one I used to introduce ArcGIS at National Geographic a couple of years ago, but the information's still the same. And so ArcGIS, I have a friend who calls it Google Maps on steroids. You can do so much with it, but I do find that the maps and the use of the maps can always be used better than with Google Maps. So if I just need a map, I'll go to arcgis.com and log on and pull up maps that way, and I can change the base maps. But it is a suite of tools, a robust resource that's free to every school, and it's usable in every class, not just social studies, sciences, English, you name it. There are resources out there. And ArcGIS is put out by a company called ESRI back under Obama's administration. Obama, he asked companies to help out schools, and ESRI took that challenge and gave every school in the United States a free organization account. So ArcGIS is used to create maps. Maps use layers of like things to be able to analyze what's going on in the world. We use it a lot lately for political geography when we've been looking at election results. If you guys watch the news at all, which I'm sure as social studies teachers you do, you have seen that the county data that they have on maps make it look like Trump won in like Georgia. If you look at Georgia and all of the county data, most of it was red, but it's important to look at those maps and look at population, and GIS can allow us to do that. So GIS equals information about the world, and it's shown as layers of points, lines, areas, and images. And we can see those on ranges of scales and viewed and analyzed on a computer. It illuminates patterns and relationships, as you can see here. So if we are looking at your organization, and I know that Mary and Deb said that you know that you have accounts. Was it Jennifer? Do you know if your school has an account? You said you didn't think so. So the school accounts are free, and you can sign up, and I've put the link on the hyperdoc that I put in the chat for the school mapping software bundle. So if your school does not have a link or have an account, all you have to do is click on the link, and it gives you information about the school mapping software. Basically, if you sign up, you just go, you can see if your school already has a license by going here. You can sign up with your information, hit submit. Charlie Fitzpatrick, who is the head of K-12 for ESRI, will get back to you, and you'll have accounts for every one of your students, as well as your staff. So it's pretty amazing that they give us this product for free. What I'm really here to talk to you guys about, though, is the ArcGIS Online Competition. So every year, for the past 5 years, ESRI has had a story map competition, and they put it out to the states, and the states determine what the topic is. Maine has never actually said what a topic. It just has to be something about Maine. And with the 200th anniversary, the bicentennial just going by, it's a really great time to be telling stories about Maine, and using maps to be able to tell those stories. So the ArcGIS Online Competition is open for students in grades 4 through 12. In teams of 1 or 2. So if you wanted to have your students pair up to complete the competition, they could do that. And they have to come up with a custom product that is about the state of Maine. And then once they have come up with their project, they have to create a web story map or a web app using ArcGIS to tell their story. Each school can have up to 5 winners. So you can submit up to 5 of your students' work. When you submit those to the state of Maine, the state will choose 5 from high school and 5 from middle school. And each of the winners will receive $100. Which is pretty awesome. I know my high school kids love getting $100. So 5 from high school, 5 from middle school in the state will win. The state also picks 1 winner from high school and 1 winner from the middle school to submit for the national competition. So they send it off to ESRI, and ESRI picks 1 high school and 1 middle school project from the entire country, and that student or student team wins a trip to San Diego for user conference. So it's a pretty nice prize that they win if they win for the state. And I can show you some of the competition winners. So 2020 was a weird year, as we all know. And the state awardees, so it can be the teacher or the parents. It's, if you wanted to say, if you win this, you go, that would be completely acceptable, but it is for the student and an adult to go. So the teacher could go. Maine Geographic Alliance, with the Maine GIS Users Group this year, is also offering a stipend for teachers who do have kids who enter the competition. So for the first 8, possibly 10, they're still trying to work out the details. The first at least 8 teachers who enter the competition will get a $150 stipend from the Maine GIS User Group. So that's kind of a nice thing to have for our classroom too. So these are some of the winners. This is a story map, just so that you know there's different ways that you can make these story maps, but it's so easy. It's just like making a website. So here's Maine. You can see we entered last year, and our science department, because of everything that was going on with COVID. I don't have my mouse right now, so I'm all over the place. So there wasn't a winner for 2020. They just gave out the $100 prizes to the state winners, and they displayed everybody on the map. So you can see Bangor High School is the only school from Maine last year to enter the competition. And no middle schools entered. So that's, I don't know why they're not showing up. They were there earlier. So these are where the competitions are. You can see New Hampshire, they had 3 come in from 3 different schools. So we really would like to get some more people to enter the competition. So the requirements: project comes from a student or showcase account in ArcGIS online organization. So it needs to come from your school's organization account. Like I said, if you don't have one, sign up for one, they're free. The project needs to open cleanly. So when they click it, it needs to open and everything needs to be able to be displayed. And the project meets the constraints. So it limits images and video sources, each of those clearly, appropriately, avoid sharing other people's faces and personal identifiable information. So those are some things to keep in mind. Let's see. So 2019, pretty sure they have these ones on here. You can see the winners are on here. The high school honor, so this was second place. First place was here for 2019 middle school awardee. And we can go in and see that entry. So this person did the journey of the Parnicus bug and the emerald ash borer. So they did some research on it. So you can see it's very much like a research project. And then they completed a map on where is it in Minnesota. And their map doesn't seem to be working right now. It might be my internet. So they went out in the field, they did some research on the emerald ash borer. So I'm guessing that was a science class that must have done that one. In 2019, my students entered and the winner was about the Brady gang. That's Maine Urban Legends. That's not the winner though. I don't know. But this is a story map on Maine Urban Legends. And you can see that the students went and did a little bit of research and put it on the map. Definitely not a winner. And that is not the one that won. Oh, here we go. So the Brady gang is the one that won. Let's go to this one. So you can see she did some research. She put in some primary source pictures, talked about why the Midwestern criminal was in Maine at this time. She gave a biography of Al Brady with a video on here. I would have preferred it if she had done her own video, but she did take a video off of YouTube. She talked about the major crimes. She mapped out where he went, so how he started in Indianapolis, and she has those first crimes mapped out. Wasn't overly impressed with the coloring. I didn't really understand what she was trying to tell me with the map, but she did try to map that out. And then she continued to map out where he went. So this one, this arrow shows how he went from Maryland back over to Ohio, where he stole a gun. So looked at historic maps, put some historic maps on there. Showed where in Goodland they robbed a bank. And then she gets into Bangor, Maine, and how he ended up here. This was the part that I really liked. She asked the question, why? Why was the Brady gang in Maine? And she looked at gun laws and how gun laws had changed throughout history, and how Maine had they didn't have many gun laws at this time. And she put in the years and what the provision of the gun laws were at that time. Maine did not have that one. So she also looked at what states did have gun laws. To this day, Maine's background check and gun laws are still much more lax than other states. So I really wish she had dived more into that analysis on the gun laws to be able to map that out even more. But I really liked where her mind was going with this. And then the burial and the gravestone. And then before sorry, my Cecily. Sorry, my daughter is wanting attention. So we have the actual event and then what it looks like today with the picture superimposed in there, and then citations. So that's one that won for the state of Maine a couple years ago. Probably no, not the best. There's so much more analysis that could have gone into this, but this is just an idea of what students can do. And there are, all of the projects are on this site. Looks like California to California drought and snowpack. This one was about campfire. This one was the Tacoma smelter. And I believe this was a historic one. There was one a few years ago that was phenomenal about, I think it was quarries. So this looks at Washington State smelter. And they mapped out Superfund sites, hazardous waste. So they looked at that in the state. So it's fun to look at these to get some ideas. If I could find the one that won, I think it was this one, US Steel. So some ideas that I've run past my students before for social studies types one, or look at Katahdin Ironworks. Look at the history of mills in our state. There's so much that we could do with mapping out the economics of the state of Maine and where it went downward from the mills. So this was one of the winners that looked at US Steel. And they included historic maps. They looked at the environmental consequences of the steel and mapped that out. More historic imagery. So that just gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do with ArcGIS for the ArcGIS competition. So for the 2020 competition, or 2021 competition, so ESRI challenges US students to conduct and share projects about something in their home state. So it can be anything about the state of Maine. ESRI's 2021 ArcGIS US School Competition is open to high schoolers and middle schoolers in the US who can analyze, interpret, and present data via an ArcGIS story map or web app. ESRI offers to all states a chance to participate with grants to support 10 equal prizes of $100 for the 5 best high school and the 5 best middle school projects in the state. Schools can submit up to 5 projects to the state, and then the state will decide what 5 total projects will win. So they're hoping to get each student winner for the country back to San Diego for the ESRI Education Conference this summer, pending pandemics, so fingers crossed. These are past winners meeting with Jack Dangerman, who is the owner, CEO of ESRI, and an awesome guy. So these are the states that so far have committed to the competition. And you can see that we are right there. This gives you some other information about the competition. You can check out the full details. There's rubrics that give you some ideas of what's expected. You can also check out what other schools have done in the past. If you are new to ArcGIS and just a beginner, I highly recommend going to the learn.arcgis hub. And this will give you some ideas of some projects to do with your students, ways to get started. And so there's lessons for new users, GIS professionals, students, teachers, and professors. So if you go on to the teacher site and explore, there are all kinds of different lessons. Lauren Sinclair, she is out in Washington State. She is an amazing middle school teacher and does a lot of hands-on GIS things with them. Will I Am, you guys might know him. He is a musician. He has gone to schools in California to help promote GIS education. So on here, there are a lot of teaching tools. You can see there are all of these lessons that you can explore. So that I've given that link to you so that you can use that. And then the last thing that I have for you, for those of you who are looking to enter the contest, there is a Drive folder here that has the forms for you to enter. And I am sorry, I don't know why my internet is so slow right now. But the drive includes permission slips. So when you have your students submit their projects to the state, they do have to have a permission and release form, so that, because they're minors, so that they can be published. There's a PDF infographic that I showed you before about the ArcGIS competition, and how it goes from the state, and the schools can submit 5 and the state can submit 5. And then there are a couple spreadsheets on here that give you step-by-step information for your students to submit their projects. So that being said, does anyone have any questions about ArcGIS or the ArcGIS student competition?
And we are a small enough group, so please feel free to either use the chat box and Q&A, or I can give you the option for us to see you and ask directly if you have a question a little more complicated. That instead of trying to type it out, we can do that as well. Any questions?
So for the 21-22 school year, I'm sure there will be. They have it every year, even in a pandemic. You can look for information. The date, I believe it is May 12th, that projects need to be in for this year. So if you don't think you can make a May 12th deadline for a competition, yes, there should be a competition next year. And next year, there's probably a lot more of a chance that there's going to be an in-person ed conference in San Diego versus this year.
Any last questions for Brandy? Well, Brandy, thank you so much for sharing your experience with this, your expertise.
If anybody does have any questions later and you want to email me about it, feel free to email me, or Matt McCourt, who is the head of the Maine Geographic Alliance. And he can answer any of your questions too. He's the one who you'll submit projects to. They don't offer mentors to students, but that is actually a really great idea that I would love to bring up to Charlie Fitzpatrick, because that would be a great, a great thing. Most of the time, what ends up happening is the teacher, it's a student-driven project that the teacher ends up being the mentor. And I've been doing a lot with the STEM program at Bangor High School to get them out doing field work and using ArcGIS. And those are the ones that were submitted from Bangor High School last year. But yes, it would be a great idea to have some mentors to be out with students. It really would, networking with those professionals. And I actually have a meeting in a couple weeks with the Northeast GIS users, and they're really wanting to get into schools. And that like their big thing right now is that they want their GIS professionals as part of their renewal for their GIS licenses to volunteer with teachers or students to help them out. And that would be a great way to do that. I'll have to bring that up when I meet with them. So class projects, they have to do their own individual projects. They can be in groups of 2. They still only get $100, so they'd have to split it 50-50. But I have seen there was a middle school teacher who submitted a class project that they had worked on, but it was only a few students who had been part of that project. Oh, when I run it as a class assignment for my GIS class in my geography classes. They have it as a class assignment. They do a geo inquiry project where they have to come up with a question and they have to create a story map to answer that question. This year, where everything's crazy, I've been giving an option, and I have a couple kids doing it as independent study. And I'm working with STEM because the STEM students have a requirement to be using GIS for their final projects. So a lot of them will be putting out some projects, and I've been working with them. But for right now, I'm not giving it as a class assignment, unfortunately. When I do it, it's a quarter assignment. So we switched things up this year, so I'm still in the learning phase, but I would always run it as a quarter assignment, usually in the 3rd quarter. This year, because my classes are only in only a quarter, I'm not doing it that way. I would give them time in class to work on it, but a lot of times they would be collecting data or going out and taking pictures to be able to put in their story maps. So they would do some of it at home as well. I do know people who have done a lot of it in class. It depends on where you are and how close you are to the resources that you want to map out. Because there are apps like Survey 123, which is part of the ArcGIS bundle, that you can have on your phone and go out and plot points. So I did the VZ Railroad, which runs from Milford to Bangor. And they have markers all around where the railroad bed used to be now, with a big V on it, big granite stones with a V. And a few years back, I had students see them and they wanted to go out and mark these markers. And they went out with this web app and they marked where they found the stone markers. And we overlaid it on a map, and you were able to see where the old railroad bed was. So that was kind of a neat thing. But they did that mostly on their own outside of school. ESRI doesn't have a preferred citation. They just want to see that you have cited things. And they give you plenty of different ways that you could cite it. I have kids do in-text citations as well as a bibliography at the end. But they don't have a preference on how things are cited. Any other questions? These are great questions.
I was going to say, I was 2/3 of my way through well, thank you for coming tonight, Brandy. And then all of a sudden the questions started popping up.
Yeah.
Last call on questions for Brandy. And there is the hyperdoc that Deb's referencing. I will post that on my professional learning site along with the video as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Joe, for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy, for sharing your expertise. I will give you the formal thank you at this time.
Have a great evening, everyone.